We're back with CBS News' John Dickerson. Okay, John, you are a wordsmith yourself. You've given quite a few speeches in your time. I just listened to your one at the Kennedy School at the Shorenstein Center up at Harvard. But what do you think of the language that Biden was using tonight? Do you see any patterns in what he was doing?
Well, the first thing was how vibrant he was in everything.
Every sentence had an exclamation mark at the end of it.
Right, exactly. It was like he was going to have an altar call and start healing people. But
Raphael Warnock called it a sermon.
Did he?
On the floor as
he
it went by, yeah.
So what struck me, well, first of all, was the number of my predecessor.
Never said Trump's name.
Never said his name, which, is the thing politicians do. They always talk about my opponent, this.
Right. How many times did he say my predecessor?
13 in the text. I don't know how many he actually said. He might have said more than that.
Because he went off book a bunch.
He did. And you can imagine his aides, right? When he goes off book.
Yes.
I mean, it's a bear on roller skates.
We don't know if the corn pop story is coming out next.
Right.
Yep.
So that struck me, my predecessor. I can't remember a State of the Union where the president went after his predecessor so much. But then I counted up the word fair because there's that section. So that's the political. We talked about why he was talking about this and the echoes in the room. But then as a policy matter, the word fair also shows up 13 times. Why is that important? Or it's interesting to me, which is he's talking about increasing teacher pay. He's talking about helping people with housing. He's talking about college loans. He's talking about lowering drug costs. How's he going to pay for all of it? By taxing corporations and those and the very wealthy. So this is a populist message.
It's fair that you get this better deal. It's fair that they pay their fair share.
Precisely.
Okay.
Right. And
I should run.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You should run. You have a good audience. You have both sides of the aisle. But Truman's Fair Deal was announced. I don't know if this was an echo for them, but it was in his 1949 State of the Union speech. So that idea of a fairness, fair shot. And why is he doing this? Of course, because his numbers are terrible on the economy. And instead of a debate about people's feelings about what they might recall from the Trump years, he wants to shift the turf to a new debate, which is what we should be talking about. What is the next president going to do in the economy to improve American opportunity and the rest of it? What's going to happen in the future and who's got the better vision? And he's happy to do that because he doesn't want to talk about the way people feel about the economy now.
Okay, one of the things that he did was that he seemed to be responding to the 100,000 uncommitted votes that were in Michigan and also some in Minnesota and elsewhere around the United States. And he announced a temporary seaport for Gaza, and he talked about the airdrops of humanitarian aid, getting a lot of humanitarian aid and calling on Israel to open up the northern gates of Gaza. How big a deal is it that he is changing his messaging?
Yeah. Well, so normally about 500 trucks a day of aid go into Gaza. It's at 100 now. The UN says 570,000 adults in Gaza are severely malnourished and close, on their way to starving. And what's extraordinary is that he's basically going around Israel to get with this seaport, as he has with the airdrop. But what's the political implications, as you mentioned? The uncommitted vote sent him a clear signal, and they are responding. First, rhetorically, you heard them change the way they talked about a ceasefire. They started making what was just a pause into a ceasefire. Usually when you talk about ceasefire, you mean stop it altogether. But they're changing the language and now changing policy in response to that. And we were talking earlier about when you don't get your way as a political supporter, what do? Do you go for violence, or do you act through the democratic process? And to me, this is the system working. A bunch of Democrats said, we don't like this policy, and we're going to show you, maybe by voting you out or making your life miserable, so you can change the policy. Now, he doesn't have to bend the knee. He can say, you can vote me out if you want. I don't agree with you. But he listened to them, apparently. And that's the way it kind of should work in a democracy.
What's kind of interesting is, of all the things, go a little bit more here. Of all the things that Mike Johnson did not stand up to applaud, it was a call for no political violence from Biden, and the Republicans did not stand up to applaud a call for no political violence.
Yeah, that whole side of the room looked, I'm not usually one who gets, I feel like you shouldn't watch the audience because then it'll just only encourage them to do more of this pantomime. But I noticed the same thing you did, which is they didn't stand at all when that's a pretty obvious thing you stand for is no political violence.
It's a low bar.
It is a low bar because you are a member of Congress to work in an institution that was created so you don't have violence. So you work out your toughest, meanest arguments in a system where you adjudicate them and everybody decides it was a fair deal. So we're not going to go have a violent insurrection or anything else. You should probably clap for that.
We have to take another break here, but stick around. We'll be right back with more Mr. John Dickerson, everybody.